The Emerald Tablets of Thoth, Tablet 5, the Interpretation. This perhaps is the most mystical of the tablets, containing also information hitherto withheld from man. Thoth is musing on the glories of Atlantis at its zenith as compared to the world around him at that time. The Dweller on Unal, the master harlot, was ruler of all the earth through the cosmic power he wielded, though he did not intervene in the government of nations unless it was absolutely necessary. Harlot was not entirely of this cycle, but he was one of the extensions of one of the lords of the cycles, manifesting on Earth's surface to fulfill certain necessary functions, helping to establish knowledge and harmony among men. He established the kingdoms of Atlantis, dividing them among the races and placing the highest developed ones as kings over the rest of the men. He then built the temple on Unal from the ether of primal substance, molding it to form by his will, using the power of the Utolan, not translated, to hold it in form. The temple was square and had 3 miles to a side and was a mile high. It did not truly rest in third-dimensional space, but in the 9th dimension, therefore the blackness. No weapon from the 3rd dimension could harm or even touch it, for anything cast against it would be lost in the curves of the 9th dimension. It had within its heart the essence of light, for there was the gateway to Amenti, where the flower of life burns eternally. The dweller used the Word in molding the form of the temple, the Word being then expressed as Utolan. Within the temple, the dweller erected mighty machines of many kinds, forming them out of the primeval matter and started them in the motion by his will. Thus actuated, they would run forever, for the will which supplied their motive power is an eternal thing. In the temple, the dweller was at most times unmanifest, that is, the physical body which he occupied from time to time remained in the temple, while the consciousness which he was manifested elsewhere. 3 from among the highest developed of men were chosen to be messengers of the dweller. They were carefully trained in their work by the dweller, while through them he chose others and had them placed on Undal, opposite Unal, to be teachers and priests to Atlantis. These later were the priests, scientists, and philosophers. Each of them was taught for 15 years by the 3 before they were allowed to teach others. Thoth made his first contact with the dweller through one of the 3 messengers. He was led before the dweller in the temple in the place of the great fire. This fire was not the fire of life, but the radiation caused by the junction of the space of the temple with the space of Amenti. Thoth was led before the dweller, who, seated on the throne, reflected the light from the gateway. To Thoth, he appeared to be literally clothed with fire. He was informed by the dweller that he was chosen to be keeper of the records, for the dweller could look into man's future, knowing the changes in consciousness would eventually bring a wave of units of consciousness of low development to Earth. He also knew the destruction of parts of Earth's surface must come, so steps must be taken so that nothing would be lost. Thoth had earned this great privilege by his own effort. The reference to the dweller as master of cycles is a reference to Earth's cycles, not cosmic cycles. He was the guardian of man's progress from one Earth cycle to another. Thoth asked for wisdom to be given him so that he can pass the knowledge he is to be given to man. Thoth is promised eternal life so that he may fulfill his promise. He remained in the temple until he received his full illumination. Thoth uses the knowledge given to him to penetrate the secrets of space, time, and matter, and in these discovers ever more and greater secrets. In the latter days of Atlantis, the great wave of consciousness which had once occupied the bodies of Earthmen had passed to Venus, and the consciousness which occupied the bodies of the masses were from Mars. These were more materialistic than the preceding consciousness, and looking to the darkness instead of the light, opening Yog-Sothoth, the gateway to the cycle below. Some of the consciousnesses of the preceding wave were attracted by material power and entered into the plane. It was perhaps this part of their nature which had kept them from going on with their fellows. The one who opens the door to the cycle below must be a master, else he will not be so balanced in power that he can keep those from below from coming up. While men were doing this, The dweller was detached from his body and projected to where it was taking place. When the dweller saw what was taking place, he returned to his body and called the messengers and sent them through Atlantis, bringing certain ones to Undal. The dweller then descended to Amenti and passed from there to forced chambers, opening into the channel through which Earth's balance passes. See Inner Earth. When the pyramid of force passed, he drew upon the power of the seven and changed the balance of Earth from one channel to another and closed the old channel. The resulting sinking of Atlantis shattered the opening by destroying the space warping machines set up by the Atlanteans. Thoth is called before the dweller and commanded to go forth to the lands still above water, taking those from Undal and removing the records of the ancient wisdom. He is commissioned as teacher or conveyor of light. Thoth gathered together the records, scientific instruments, and machines with the wise men of Atlantis, entered a spaceship, and flew to Khem. The motive power of the spaceship was energy extracted from the sun and stored. Electricity is one form of this force, but qualified by emanations from the pyramid of force. When the spaceship had left, the dweller sealed the temple and sank it and Undal beneath the waves. He and three then went elsewhere. Thoth arrived in Egypt and conquered the barbarians. He then buried the spaceship and certain implements of warfare beneath a great rock, which was then carved as the Sphinx. When the time arrives that invaders from space attack the Earth, it will be brought forth to repel them. Thoth gives a key for opening the hidden passage from the pyramid to the Sphinx. The same key will open the doorway to the room from which opens the path to Amenti. Peace and blessings to you all.